Happy Sunday to all of you guys. Happy Sunday to you. If you are on here, please get those likes up. Get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion, share it with somebody who you think may find it interesting. I'm going to try to keep this one rather short, as I do have quite a bit I'm trying to cook up tonight. I'm trying to experiment with a new recipe, so y'all pray for me. I usually don't go live on Sundays, but I kind of felt inspired. I wanted to talk about this topic a little bit. So, I happened some issues here. Yeah. So again, thank you for joining me. If you're here, get those likes up, tag anybody, share it with someone. We're going to talk a little bit today about why women love to gossip. Why women love to gossip. Also, if you would like to show support to this channel, you can find me on CASHAPP or VENMO, Chez, CHARDE. I appreciate any support, big or small. Also, I will be mindful to try to read all of these super chats. So just to get right into today's topic, why do women love to gossip? So first off, y'all already know, right? Y'all already know that men and women communicate very, very differently. I mean, I see this demonstrated like almost every single day between my interaction with my husband, even when I think about the different ways he talks. When I, like, for example, when I have a conversation with my girlfriend, the different things we're talking about. We're talking about relationships most of the time, you know, what's going on with us emotionally, how are our friends doing, what's happening in their relationships, their life, like very, very focused on relationships and like those inner workings, those details. My husband, on the other hand, it's just so funny when, you know, he'll tell me about the different conversations he's having with his friends. And I'm always like, oh, what's happening with his girlfriend? What's happening with his wife or whatever? And he's like, I don't know. We don't talk about that kind of stuff. You know, talking about accomplishments, maybe politics, like what are they building? What are they working on in their work? So, I mean, I just think out the gate, men and women, you know, we communicate differently. We're focused on different things to a certain extent. And I think that's natural, you know. Again, I don't expect a woman or any woman to communicate in a way that a guy would or vice versa. But this topic of gossip, I think, is where we as women can start to really, really go into a negative direction. And that's something I wanted to address today. Again, if you're on here, please get those likes up, tag anybody on it who you think may find it interesting. So really, to get down to it, the reason I think women love to gossip is because gossip is one of the things that gives you the ability to avoid self-accountability. Gossip is the thing that can fuel women from focusing on somebody else, focusing on what somebody else is doing wrong, focusing on what they got off, what's wrong with them, what they're doing, you know, wrong, whatever it may be. And as you're focusing on that person, talking about that person, judging that person, you know what I mean, criticizing that person, what that in fact does is it takes your eyes off of yourself. It takes your eyes off of your own life, what you're doing wrong, what you've done wrong, where you failed, where you've made a mistake, and you're now becoming judge and juror of that individual. And for women in particular who maybe they don't like themselves, they have low self-esteem, they're embarrassed about their choices, they're ashamed of their life, they're ashamed of themselves and in any capacity. If they haven't faced those internal issues, if they haven't faced their own life, their own discontentment, they can find happiness or they can find solace in talking about another woman because it makes them feel better. It makes them feel validated. Like, okay, well, yeah, I'm bad, but at least I'm not as bad as her. And they will sometimes take that negative energy and they'll put it on another female, they'll put it on another woman, because that way they don't have to deal with themselves. So I really think there are a lot of women out there, and I don't want to say, you know, women are the only one, but it feeds this culture like women are allergic to accountability. There's a lot of women right now who are allergic to accountability. They just don't know how to do it. And instead of being accountable and instead of looking in the mirror and saying, dang, I don't like my life, or dang, I messed up here, or dang, I'm not happy with my circumstances, whatever it may be, it's a lot easier to try to pick on somebody else that you think is doing wrong, or to try to focus your energy on somebody else that you dislike, because then you don't have to focus on yourself. So again, if you're on here, please get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. I'm just going to talk a little bit why I believe women love to gossip. one of the different reasons that it's so popular today, and what I think is one of the roots behind it. As I mentioned before, men and women naturally communicate differently. So I'm not talking about that, but it can get to a certain point to where we can just get into gossip. We can get into, spreading lies, spreading rumor about other women or about other people, damaging their character for no reason. And like I said, those are the kind of that's the kind of content, some of the kind of channels that really, really, really take off. And I think there's this toxic cycle that some of us women have, to where when we see somebody else suffering, or we see somebody else doing worse off than us, or making a mess of their own life, it can become a distraction from us dealing with the toxicity in our life. Because again, accountability right now is not popular. That is not a popular thing. What is popular is, okay, level up, boss up, leave the dusties behind. Don't mess with these broke dusties. You know what I mean? Don't mess with these beta males. Like, what is popular is to talk about all the bad things men are doing, or all the bad things people around us are doing, and how we're trying to elevate ourselves into another level. But what's not really popular is talking about why or how we got into situations or relationships with beta males or dusties or broken men. That's not popular to talk about, how we ourselves ended up in a situation that was hurtful or harmful, how we ourselves ended up in a situation where we were taken advantage of. It's not healthy or popular to talk about why we got there. Because if you're in a bad relationship with another person, relationships are reflective. You know what I mean? They're reflective. So oftentimes there's something about that relationship, whether it's good or bad, that it's a mirror into ourselves. It's a mirror into our own soul, our emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, whatever it may be. So, again, if you could get those likes up, I want to read a passage I saw today, because this is kind of what inspired me to want to talk about this real quick. It was a passage I was reading today, and it was talking a lot about accountability. And so I'm going to read it. This is a short little paragraph. This is a daily devotional that I have called One Day at a Time in Al-Anon. For many of you guys know that I'm been a part of Al-Anon the last few months, and so it's been a really interesting, helpful program for me. But here it reads, in Al-Anon, we start by clearing out the debris of our own mistakes, right? So we start by clearing out the debris of our own mistakes. So again, what that actually means is that there's a certain time in your life where you got to look in the mirror and be like, I am partially responsible for the mess of my life, or I am fully responsible for the mess of my life, depending on the situation. But again, you're taking inventory of our own mistakes. Then it says, we learn to recognize how much we ourselves have contributed to the destruction of our home life. I'm going to read that again. We learn to recognize how much we ourselves have contributed to the destruction of our home life. Like I said, it's so popular out here right now to want to gossip or talk about all the horrible things that everybody else is doing, all the bad men that don't know how to respect women, or that are broke, or that are cheaters, or that are colorist, or darkest, or futurist, or whatever it's that they may be. That's so popular. That's what's going to get you money. That's what's going to get you views, okay? But nobody wants to talk about why we're attracted to those kind of men. Nobody wants to talk about that, or nobody wants to talk about what got us involved in these kind of situations to begin with. Nobody wants to talk about the self-accountability. And that's what I'm saying. Again, for some of us, gossip fuels this kind of sick sense of validation, that if we deep down inside of ourselves know that somewhere in our life we messed up, but we refuse to be accountable to that. We are unwilling to look at our own mistakes. We instead look to somebody else and we judge them as a way to try to fuel our own inflated sense of self, right? We judge somebody else so that we can feel better about ourselves, because we're saying, okay, yeah, what you're really saying subconsciously is, look, yeah, I messed up, I'm bad, but well, at least I'm not as bad as them, or at least I'm not as messed up as her, or at least, you know what I mean? So it makes you feel better, because now you're putting yourself above that person that you deem as, bad because they made bad mistakes. When in reality, the truth is, like I said, you're just upset with yourself. You're mad at yourself. you have your own internal issues. But if you don't deal with that, if you're unable to deal with that, the next best thing you have to do is to gossip, talk about somebody else, focus on somebody else's issues so you don't have to focus on your own issues. And I think, again, we have a huge culture that promotes that promotes women not being accountable. Okay? That promotes women not being introspective. A part of leveling up, right, is looking in the mirror and being like, okay, well, where did I make a mistake? Right? Where was I wrong? Where did I not choose right? Or where did I, get into a wrong relationship? Or where did I have a bad attitude and mess it up? Or where did I have no self-control and, I slept with that dude, or I had no self-control and I blew the money, like whatever it may be. That needs to be an aspect of leveling up. How to level up your accountability. Why don't we hear that? Like, let's level up our accountability life. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a topic. Everybody wants to talk about how you level up by getting away from all these toxic people. Granted, but you also got to make sure that you're not toxic so that you can do that. So again, if you're on here, please get those likes up, y'all. Get those likes up. Again, if you would like to show support to the show, you can find me on CASHAPP or VENMO, CHARDE. I'll also be sure to read all super chats. And again, I just want to talk a little bit why I believe women love to gossip. So I'm not even finished with this reading, but I want to move on. So it says, again, we learn to recognize how much we ourselves have contributed to the destruction in our home life. Again, like I said, relationships are self-reflective. So it's not about you beating up yourself, but if you're in a situation with another person and it went sour, it's unlikely that other person was 100% all wrong and you were 100% all right. That's just, life don't work like that. Then it says, there was no vacuum we were living in with only the, here it says alcoholic, but that could be any person, doing all of the damage. We reacted to and made things worse. We are asked here in Al-Anon to reflect on our own conduct. Did we talk too much? Did we talk too loudly and hysterically when we should have kept silent? So again, prime situation. Were there times in our life when we are honest with ourselves where maybe we instigated the situation? Yeah, that person was wrong, the individual was wrong, but did we make it worse by our behavior? Or did we make it worse by the way that we responded? Did we make it worse by instigating? Did we make it worse by getting into, fight mode, whatever it may be? How did we contribute to that negative situation? It said, do we oppress the unhappy drinker still further at hangover time? And with a black and sulking silence, when a few comforting words might have turned his thoughts toward looking for help. And again, in this reading, it focuses on alcoholics, but I think this could really apply to anybody who struggles. You may have certain people where maybe they're not alcoholics, but they may have an anger issue, or they may have, humans are flawed. You know what I mean? So all our flaws come in different forms. But either way, when we're encountering somebody with a flaw, we could instigate that issue. We can accelerate that issue, or we can diffuse it based upon the way that we respond. And like I said, there are many times where there's situations that may blow up, or there's relationships that may blow up. And it's rare that it's just 100% that entire other person. Oftentimes there's both happening. Things are happening on both ends that led to whatever that blow up might be. So it says here, how difficult it is to face our own shortcomings. How much easier it becomes when we face them together in Al-Anon, since many of us have been guilty unknowingly of the same mistakes. It says, make me grateful for having been shown a way out of my difficulties through the Al-Anon program of self-understanding. Make me humble enough to accept a new and more rational view of my life. So like I said, this is a very, very short reading. Yeah, this is a short reading, but again, it was this idea of self-accountability. And I think in my humble opinion, if there is more of a focus on women learning to be accountable and learning to be introspective first and looking in the mirror first and, honing on their own issues first before we start becoming judge and juror of other people, I think we'd have a lot better results. I think we'd have a lot better, healthy relationships. I think people would be happier. I think people would be more healthier. But instead, we fuel this toxic we can feel sometimes this toxic habit of just gossiping about other people and other situations and other scenarios, all in an effort to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. That's what I'm saying. There's certain women in particular who do that solely because they need to feel like they're better than another person. And the only reason they need to do that is because internally, deep down inside, they're not happy with their own life. And that is a unhealthy and that is an unsatisfying way to live. So if you're on here, please get those likes up. Shout out to Marco Polo for the $4.99 in the super chat. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. And like I said, this is not just a thing. This is not just an issue among women. You know, I mean, there's obviously nobody, I don't think anybody likes to get up in the morning and say, oh, I messed up my life, or, oh, I messed up here. Like, nobody enjoys that process, but the truth will set you free. I oftentimes think back to that parable or that story where, the Messiah was walking around, and basically the Pharisees come to him because they were trying to implicate this woman who they found having an affair. And they're like, oh, Jesus, she needs to be killed basically because she had an affair. And he looks at the Pharisees and he's like, okay, well, he who was without fault cast the first stone. And in that story, the very people who were hell bent, like they're ready to kill her, when he tell them, okay, make a moral inventory of yourself before you start going and being judge and jury of that woman, all of them had to leave. Every last one of them had to leave. And so, I mean, I know for me, that's one of the reasons I came to understand my need for the Messiah, because I was like, there is no way that I can ever try to become judge and jury of other people, or there is literally no way that I could try to position myself as better than anyone else, when I know that there are so many things, if I'm honest with myself, there are so many things that I've done wrong, and there's so many areas in my life where I need change and I need the power to change. So it's like, I mean, me personally, it's like, if I'm being honest, there's on a day-to-day basis, there's things that I'm seeing in my heart and my character that need working. That's like, I don't even really have the energy to sit here and try to be judge and jury of somebody else's life, because as soon as I do that, what's that old saying? As soon as you point a finger at somebody, you got 3 fingers pointing back to you. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not saying that you can't call a spade a spade. If something is wrong, it is wrong, and we can address it, but it has to be done within reason. But again, if we're getting into where we are damaging somebody's character, you making up lies, like I said, just gossiping, and you're so involved in the other person's life. You're so involved in trying to prove the other person wrong. You're so involved in trying to make that other person look bad, create hate videos, hate speech, or whatever. You're so involved in trying to tear that person's image down. What energy are you using to focus on yourself? What energy are you using to, again, look at yourself in the mirror and make sure that you're okay? Because best believe, if you take an honest moral inventory, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about just your actions, right? But you know what I mean? If you ask the Spirit of truth to search your heart, mind, motives, there's going to be something there that you're like, dang, I need to change that. So that's what I'm saying. For me, it's like every single day I wake up, and as soon as I want to feel like I'm better than somebody else, or feel like, oh, I could judge them, I'm quickly reminded. It's like, no, you still got pride. No, you still got, you know what I mean? You got, I don't know, self-will there. Or no, you were being judgmental. Like I said, to me, there's things on a daily basis where I'm reminded that I need to remain humble, and I need to focus on what God is telling me and my own heart that I need to work on. So I don't have time to be sitting here trying to gossip about no other female or no other man, because I got to make sure I'm right before God. But like I said, that is to me so much more in the long run. That's so much more beneficial and so much more productive than just spend all our time talking about everybody else. But unfortunately, we just don't see it. We don't see accountability being that popular. But I do think it needs to be more talked about, in my humble opinion. I see character assassins creed. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, character assassins, that's what gets those likes. That's what gets those views. I'm always so interested to see the different content that I create that'll get that'll get likes versus not get likes. Like, it seems like the things, for example, had this live again like last week where I had 2 women come on who lost like 400 pounds. And I'm thinking, we got all these females over here that are really overweight and unhealthy. Let's talk about it. And that was like one of my least watched videos. Now, for those who did watch it, they really enjoyed it and I got some support, but it wasn't well watched. But let me talk about, I don't know, Rihanna. Let me talk about Chloe and her new relationship. Like, that's all the stuff that people care about. And I'm like, to me, it's just funny because it just kind of reminds me the kind of thing that sells. Sadly, the things that sell and that get you money aren't always the things that help people, or always the things that are going to lead to a better life outcome. But that just, that's a part of it. I kind of knew that coming into it, that like, yeah, maybe there's going to be certain things that I'm passionate about that I feel like need to be addressed, that are going against the grain, that are going against the popular narrative, but it needs to be put out. It needs to be put out there, whether or not there's support, it's well liked or not, it needs to be put out there. So, it's just sometimes I'll be judging, but it helps at times, I guess. Well, here's the thing. You can judge action, like if something's wrong is wrong. So I'm not saying we got to like tiptoe around and just, act like bad things will happen. They obviously do. Like if somebody does something wrong, or there's a really toxic idea, like, y'all know, I'll talk about things that I feel like are really unhelpful. So I'm not saying that you can't call a spade, but to me, that's a lot different than now I'm making a judgment on that person's heart and their character. I've never talked to them. I don't know them. I don't know their thoughts. I don't know their, like, the way they process. Like, I'm not God. You know what I mean? So it's like, to me, that's where you separate the person from the action. Like I try to keep those things distinctive, where it's like, okay, that action was wrong. Those ideas are wrong. Those practices are wrong. But as far as me judging that person, I leave that up to God. I'm not going to put myself in the seat of being a judger. But more importantly, like I said, if you can become obsessed, or you become so focused on when somebody else does wrong that you are unable to find what you've done wrong, or what you may be doing wrong, or where you need to improve, that's where it can become a problem. And like I said, I think that is one of the primary reasons we see women loving gossip channels, because it keeps them from having to be self-accountable. It keeps them from having to look in the mirror and say, I effed up my life. I need help. I need a savior. I need God to help me. I need to be accountable. I need to be honest with myself. If you can keep your mind filled with what somebody else is doing wrong, or who's sleeping with who, or who, you know what I mean, or bickering and fighting, then you don't have the energy or the mental capacity to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I acknowledge my wrongdoing. But that's what needs to happen in order for you to actually start to have a productive, productive life, or to have better, to start to see change. So yeah, so again, if you're on here, get those likes up. I know we usually don't do lives on Sunday, but like I said, I wanted to talk about this because I saw I kind of saw this topic in a devotional I was doing earlier today, and I was like, let me address this, because this is, like I said, this is almost all that happens. We see all these gossip channels, all these celebrity gossip things, and I'm not saying you can't talk about what celebrities do. I mean, that's kind of the culture we're in. But at what point does it become a distraction? At what point does it become, a distraction from what you really need to be focusing on, which might actually be your own life, or what might actually be your own decision making, So yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on the topic. I didn't want to take too much of y'all time, but Hey y'all, again, if you're here, please get those likes up. I know you have some people coming in and out. So I'm gonna just recap, basically what I was saying was that, in my humble opinion, the reason I believe women love to gossip is because it gets their mind off of their own mistakes. If you can put yourself in a position where you are judging somebody else, where you're focused on what somebody else is doing wrong, you no longer have the energy to focus on yourself and to focus on what you've done wrong. And I think women who are unable to be accountable, who don't know how to be accountable, or who don't desire to be accountable, this culture can feed that. This culture can feed that narrative. It can feed the narrative of it's his fault, it's their fault, that person's fault, or, well, they did it worse. Because one of the last things that some people want to do is be accountable. That's one of the scariest ideas is just be accountable and say, I messed up. I did wrong. I broke down my own home, or I was at the very least responsible in breaking down my own home. That is one of the last things that certain people want to do. But that is the only way you're going to ever get change, is if you face the truth about yourself. That's what I'm saying. It's like every single day, I am quickly reminded if I ever have if I'm ever tempted to want to try to pretend like I'm better than somebody else, I'm quickly reminded of my own faults. Like I said, you pray to the Spirit of truth, you ask the Spirit of truth to search your heart, mind, and your soul. You're going to find out real quickly that there are plenty of things that you have to focus on that you don't have enough time to focus on what somebody else did wrong. So, I see a lot of celebrity gossip news as basic. This person is so not that person. Did person throw shade? Yep, that's all it is. She said this, he said that. She's sleeping with him. That preference sleeping with that preference. That colorist beat up that Pookie, and then now he's a Ray Ray, and then the Ray Ray is now having an affair with. Like it's like who is sleeping with who, and it's like who cares? Like meanwhile, who are you sleeping with, and are you making a decision in your life? Oh, y'all, give me 1 second. It looks like my battery is about to. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna have to plug in my computer. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to get my camera plugged in, or my computer plugged in. But right, a lot of the stuff you said, it's just it's celebrity gossip stuff, and I'm not saying that. I think at the core, women, we're relational, community minded. So there's always going to be aspects of this that we're talking about relationships. We're talking about our friends' relationships, other people's relationships. Like that's what we just love to do. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because women will be women. Like it just is what it is. Like I said this at the beginning of the live, where all I have to do is look at if I look at like the conversations that my husband has with his friends versus mine, I'm always reminded, like, men and women, they're so different. Men, they're talking about what they accomplished, what they're working on, what they're building, you know what I mean? What their society, politics, whatever. And not to say women don't talk about that. For the most part, we're talking about relationships. Let's just be real. We're talking about who's with who's going to be getting with who. You know what I mean? If you're single and you're dating, 90% of your conversations are around that. Unless you are actively trying to pretend like you're not talking about relationships because you're trying to level up and focus on being single. But even then, you're still thinking about relationships. So it's like some of the stuff I know is just, I think that the nature of men and women, we're different. So I'm not saying that women, we got to be like, men and women are never going to talk the same. They're never going to think the same. It just is what it is. But again, when it comes down to gossip and it comes down to you finding a reason to consistently focus on what somebody else is doing or what they're doing wrong or whatever it may be, so that you now don't have the energy to focus on your own life or don't have the energy to really, really be accountable to your own decisions, that's when it just becomes a problem. And as I said before, why don't we have more level up accountable, how to level up your accountability? Like level up accountability pages. Like I see a lot of level up content, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's always like, get a better job, try to get some more money, focus on your career, focus on whatever. But it's like, how about we level up our accountability? How about we say, okay, you know what? I'm going to acknowledge the fact that I am attracted to toxic situations, or I'm acknowledging the fact that I have a bad attitude. I'm acknowledging the fact that I have unhealthy eating habits and I'm at risk. I'm pre-diabetic, or I am risk for heart disease. I acknowledge that I'm a workaholic. I'm acknowledging I'm addicted to like whatever. Like, because actually those are the kinds of conversations that actually lead to real change. Those, not who's sleeping with who, not what celebrity, the newest celebrity gossip, what they're wearing, what they're not wearing. Like that's just filler content, but that's not really getting to the heart of what's causing women to be unhappy, what's causing women to be unsuccessful, what's giving them, you know what I mean, what's giving them anxiety. It's just not. It's just going around the mountain. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I don't have much else on the topic, but like I said, I wanted to touch on this really quick because this is a thing. This is a thing, and y'all, any of you guys who've been in a relationship with a woman who talks too much, talks about too much about the wrong things, that can be really, really toxic. That can be really, really toxic. Like if she doesn't know when to be silent, or if she doesn't know how to keep information to herself, that can destroy a relationship completely. Like one of the things that I was told during premarital counseling before we got married was how like they told us, they're like, whatever you do, if you have a problem with your husband, if you're working out a challenge, do not go around telling sister, mom, aunts, uncles, dad. Don't do that. Because when you make up with your husband, when you guys work out that little, whatever that issue was, whatever that argument was about, once you work it out, they weren't there. They weren't there when they did that. So now you and your husband, you've moved on to a new phase. You've moved on to a new, you know what I mean? Y'all are happy now. You're cool. But your mom or your auntie or your friend, whoever you told, they don't forget. They don't forget where you were at when you were on the phone with them pouring out your heart, or when you were out on the phone with them complaining. They don't forget that. They don't forget that because they're not there when you're with your husband working out those things. They're not there when you're with your husband, you know, hammering things out and compromising and coming to a conclusion. They're not there. So they're like, whatever you do, you have some hard things you're going through. You work that out with your husband. Maybe you have one or two people that you guys have trusted that, like, if we can't work this out, we're going to work this out with a counselor or somebody that we trust. But apart from that, you better not be going popping out your mouth to best friend, to sister, to aunt, to cousin, to brother, to neighbor, because again, that's the kind of stuff. Those are the kind of behaviors that can lead to a relationship tearing apart from the outside in. So, like I said, knowing even when to talk, that in and of itself is a skill. And if you talk too much, or you talk too much about the wrong things, that can really cause some issues. So, yeah. So, anyways, I appreciate you guys stop by. And like I said, again, if you like this content, if you find it helpful, please share it. As I mentioned, sadly, it's just certain topics or just constructive things don't always get as much views as they should. It is what it is. But if you like this, if you found it helpful, if you think somebody you know, a woman in particular, might find this helpful, share it, get the message out there. Because again, like I said, whether or not it's popular, we want to talk about it or not, these are actually the kinds of things that are, in my humble opinion, affecting women. Women who are so involved in gossip, so involved in this toxic cycle that society to a certain extent promotes or at least incentivizes by money. It's damaging themselves, because at the end of the day, it doesn't give them the tools and it doesn't encourage them to be accountable. And we as women have to know how to be accountable and acknowledge what in our life is done wrong. And of course, that does take the power of God and that takes the spirit of truth. But like I said, if somebody really desires real change, if you desire real change, it is available to you, but you gotta be honest. You can't be caught up by all the distractions of, you know what I mean, who's sleeping with who. Because like I said, if you're doing that, or if you are just so hell-bent on talking about what somebody else has done wrong, then you're probably not focusing on what you're doing wrong currently. So those are my thoughts. And yes, you said men and women both. I do agree. Like I said, I'm not going to say that there's men out there who don't also struggle with accountability. Absolutely. I'm just focusing on women primarily because I am a woman. This is a femininity channel. But yes, I think this can apply to men too. Now, I think it's the nature of men. They're not. I don't see a lot of gossip channels with like men on there just hanging out. Like I just don't see it, because I just don't think most men. I don't think most men care about who a rapper sleeps with at night. I don't think they really care. They're just like, whatever. Like I need to go make some money, or level up my own life. So I think most men, if they have struggles with accountability, it's gonna look differently. It's not gonna look like they're spending a couple hours on a day looking at gossip, binge watching gossip, celebrity gossip channels, or talking about somebody else, or creating hate videos about another female and the way she looks in a dress. Like, God, I don't think guys are gonna. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but so anyways, I do appreciate you guys hopping by. Like I said, I try not to do lives on Sunday as much as it can be a busy day, but I did want to talk about this. So again, if you like it, please be sure to like it before you head out. Also, please show support to the show. You can find me on CASHAPP or VENMO CHezCharde. Also appreciate all the super chats. However much support, big or small, it's all very much appreciated. Anyways, I think I'm gonna sign off because I have some new recipes I'm gonna try today. So y'all pray for me. All right, so yeah, I think I'm gonna sign off and stay tuned. I have another live tomorrow, and we'll talk later. Bye.